All right. We're back. I gotta ask you, America, what is wrong with you? Why would you sit and allow 104,000 illegal aliens, not undocumented, not poor helpless people looking for a home, not poor people looking for being able to take care of their families? Stop minimizing it. Stop being politically correct. When 104,000 of them were released in 2013 alone by a betrayalist, by a treasonous president and his entire administration, by an entire group in Border Patrol and ICE and a Department of Justice that are flagrantly violating and abusing every aspect of every privilege that they've ever been given. They've been given a high-duty calling to protect us. That's their promise. That's their mantra, their call. We're doing all of this to protect you. We've employed thousands of police who we've armed to the teeth. Well, if that's the case, then why are you not arresting 100,000 people, putting them on planes, and flying them down to the tip of South America? Let them walk back. I don't care how big or how small the offense. It's not the point. The point is that we have 100,000 active criminals who haven't paid for their crime to a society which they don't belong to, and nobody cares. $17,228 traffic offenses. Okay, might have been a taillight out, might have been something else. Driving under the influence of liquor, 15,635. Ladies and gentlemen, if there's only 100,000 of them here, that means 15% drove drunk. Ask yourself, does 15% of the American population drive drunk in 1 year and get caught? We're not talking about those who didn't get caught. We're only talking about those who did. Give me the number, please. It sure as heck ain't 15%. Dangerous drugs, 9,187. That's almost 10%. Is 10% of America arrested every year for drugs? No. How do I know that? It's easy. We have, 315 million people in the United States of America, and about 3 million of them are behind bars. That's 1%, ladies and gentlemen, 1. And they're not all there for drugs. Larceny, 5,055. Stole something. Larceny, they stole from someone else. They came here illegally and stole. 5% of them. Obstructing judiciary, Congress, and the legislature. Really? 3,245. Now, I'm sure they were mostly protesters, but that's beside the point. You're going to actually violate the laws of a nation, cross the border illegally, commit crimes here, and then chain yourself to a fence and demand that you get amnesty? General crimes, 2,867. Assault, 2,691. 3% of these people committed an assault on another human being. These are only the ones we catch. These are only the ones we caught and released. This isn't all the other ones that nobody knows about. Violations of public peace, 2,608. Burglary, 2,510. Do you know that burglary is considered on federal grounds to be a crime of violence? You know why? It's always a crime of violence. I know this from my own personal experience because I did research on it. Every burglary is a crime of violence because the possibility that someone would be in the home when it's burglarized or the place of business is extraordinarily high, and therefore the risk of violent activity as a result of that person being caught in the act, all federal law construes burglary to be a crime of violence, even if no violence occurs. Did you know that every bank robbery is a crime of violence? Even though you walked in and did it with a note, you're convicted of a crime of violence. Why? Because it's possible that the teller is going to have a heart attack or that the security guard is going to pull a gun and somebody's going to get shot. So don't tell me burglary is not a crime of violence. It is. At least according to the legal beagles who run this insane asylum. Fraudulent activity. I don't even know how to define that. 2,394. Obstructing police. 2,104. I'll even strip that out and call that part of the protesters group. Just to give you simpering, utopian fantasy, unicorn, fart-breathing, stupid idiots an opportunity to take a deep breath. Weapons offenses, 1,724. Really? So let's get this straight. You've crossed our borders illegally, thereby breaking the law. And now you're running around with a weapon and you get off scot-free, when there are literally millions of Americans sitting in prisons. Born here. Some stupid idiot on the liberal progressive puke side will be sitting there saying, but the statistics say that half the people in federal prison are illegals. Exactly my flippin' point. I mean, unbelievable. As if that's some justification. Like we're catching them. We're not. 104,000 of them have been released back into the streets. Like a catch and release program on a river or a creek or a lake. The only problem is these fish are piranha. And they're breeding. Domestic violence, 1,317 cases. Battery, 1,267 cases. Invasion of privacy, 1,249 people. Forgery, 1,216. This from the same crowd who says it's not right to force someone to have an ID to vote. Stolen vehicle, 1,160. Stolen property, 1,131. Family offenses, 1,099. Aggravated assault, 1,075. Robbery, 790. Sex offenses not involving an assault or commercialized sex, I have no idea how these banana-brained gumballs classify that. 727. Commercialized sex offenses, an additional 606. How many of those were sex offenses against children? We'll never know. What if it was yours? What if it was your daughter? What if it was your baby? What if it was your wife? Property damage, 725. Traffic offense, hit and run, 647. Liquor, 447. Traffic offense, driving under the influence of drugs, 435. You can add that to the initial 15,635 to jack the number up well over 16,000. 16% of these people alone were convicted of driving under the influence of something. Is 16% of the adult population in the United States found guilty of driving under the influence of a drug or alcohol? Sexual assault, 426. So let's see. 426 people who have sexually assaulted another human being are out and running around on the streets, not having had to pay for their crime, not being one, imprisoned or even fined, much less kicked out of the country. But if you're a regular natural born American, you don't get that privilege. Ladies and gentlemen, I challenge you to show me how that makes sense. Health and safety, 425. Simple assault, 395. Flight and escape, 303. Kidnapping, 228. 228. Kidnapping is a crime that, starts at what, 10, 15 years? Threats, 167. Intimidation, 141. Homicide. Murder, 116. And that doesn't count the homicide, negligent manslaughter by vehicle, another 24. Nor the involuntary negligent manslaughter by a weapon of 19. It doesn't count the voluntary manslaughter of 14 more. It doesn't count the 10 willful killings, nor the 9 weapon willful killings that were done with other than a gun, nor the 6 non-family weapon killings, nor the 5 non-family gun killings. Extortion, 53. Juvenile offenders, 52. Embezzlement, 51. Conservation violations, that would be poaching, I would assume, 49. Arson, 47. Arson. Tax revenues, 36. Smuggling, 26. Bribery, 15. Traffic offense, transporting dangerous material. What does that constitute? I have no clue. But I can tell you that, it's probably, I don't know, I don't even know what it is. I'm assuming that it's something, probably, I don't want to assume. This number, these numbers should have every American fighting, flipping mad. Sovereignty, treason, sabotage. 4. 4. 4. Convicted of treason and sabotage. Released. Released. Willful murder of a public official with a gun. 1. Manufacturing, selling, and delivering abortifacients. 1. Who would buy an abortifacient made in a bathtub in some grimy tenement rat hole? There is no justification for this. There is no excuse. There is no quarter that we should be willing to give. How can anyone justify these activities based purely upon a person's race and national origin? How? It's impossible. And as a percentage of the total population of immigrants, if in fact their numbers are accurate, and there really are only 12 million, which is impossible because we've been hearing that there's 12 million for the last 20 years. Are you trying to tell me no more came in, nobody had a baby? See, that's how they get around it. Well, the baby's not illegal. The hell you say? How do you justify that? How can a president who is sworn to uphold the rule of law, protect and defend the nation of which he is the undisputed leader, how can an entire administration, how can an entire Congress, how can an entire judiciary turn their backs how can they release murderers, rapists, child molesters back into our society with no penalty paid, and they don't even belong here in the first place? How can you give them better treatment than you give your own countrymen? I'm all for fairness. I'm all for empathy. I'm all for the ability to see and recognize that there are some people who come across this border seeking merely to just have a better life. But nothing justifies this. Nothing will allow rationale to explain it away. There is no logical defense. And the people in ICE, in Border Patrol, in Department of Justice, in the courts, in the prisons that are releasing them, are guilty of acts of treason because they know. And they can no longer say, I'm just doing what I was told. I'm just doing my job. I'm just following orders. That is not an excuse. Tom Donahue, the manic, terrified, obviously. He's the president of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. He came out yesterday and said that the GOP shouldn't even field a presidential candidate in 2016 unless Congress passes immigration reform. What? You're going to put the livelihood, the benefit of American citizenship over the Republican principle of consent of the governed? Whose side are you on, Tom Donahue? How dare you say you represent American industry? If the Republicans don't do it, they shouldn't bother to run a candidate in 2016. Think about that. Think about who the voters are. Then when he realized he just stepped on his most personal member with golf cleats, he tried to cover it and he said, I just did that to get everybody's attention. The hell you say? You don't make a public statement like that to get attention. You made that public statement, Tom Donahue, out of fear because you've been paid. And you know whatever threat has been transmitted along with the money, you're shaking in your yellow boots. You piece of pathetic human awful. This guy has spent months pushing on Republicans to support and defend and issue immigration, amnesty, to the self-same 105,000 I just told you about, have completely violated. I mean, look, ladies and gentlemen, we're releasing kidnappers, murderers, and child rapists into the street, and none of them are American citizens. We don't treat our own that good. The truth is, not a single one of these people who were involved in this process, not a single one of them has justification to remain an American citizen. They should be stripped of their citizenship and ejected from this nation, exiled with the label dishonorably discharged for treason and acts against your own nation. Barack Insane Obama and his entire crew up there on Capitol Hill, Harry Reid, John Boehner, Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, John McCain, the whole lot of them. Every justice in the court system removed. Every one. Are there good ones? Yes, but dagnabbit, we can't find them. And if we could, we wouldn't even have to take off our shoes to count them. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. You're listening to America's Voice Now. You can communicate with me by email at mike@americasvoicenow.org. That's mike@americasvoicenow.org.